So, were you drafted, or did you enlist?
Well, I volunteered for the draft. That's different than just waiting for it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I signed up, I had to sign up for 6 years. I had no desire to do that. And if I was drafted, everything was the same except we were going to go home when it was over with. We were in there for the purpose, and once we got it done, a lot of us just wanted out. So,
Okay.
so I was drafted, and I was rejected physically, and then I appealed it, and same doctor examined me again, and he said, do you remember me? I said, no. He says, well, I don't remember you, but he said, I know my signature. I made a mistake. You're 9 months late, kid. So in I went, which is what I wanted to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, it just kind of took a couple of years.
And then how old were you when you started the process of...
I would say 19.
Okay.
That was really, well, I should have been in a year earlier, but
yeah,
I didn't qualify, so.
Okay. What training base camp did you go to? Like, where was it located? And
it was located at Wichita, Texas. Wichita Falls, Texas.
Okay.
Just a training base there where you marched in the hot sun about this time of the year and you learned to shoot a gun and whatever. So.
Were the conditions bad there? Like, was it...
Well, to me, service was just incredibly boring. There just wasn't enough to occupy you. Just spend all your time hurrying to the next place just to wait to see why they wanted you there. It was not I had no desire to ever stay in the service, but every time I got a chance to volunteer something, I'd volunteer, and so I moved around quite a bit.
How long were you at the training? Like, how long did it take for you to get through training?
I think it was probably 6 weeks. Wasn't that long.
Okay.
One of the reasons is I was given what we call an MOS number. If you had a trade as a civilian and they could use in the service, and you were moved into an MOS and put where you were needed. So I had been an airplane mechanic before I went in, and so they gave me an MOS. And 3 days after I was assigned that number, the Air Force was connected with the Army. It was the Army Air Corps. And then they separated later into its own group. But so when the Battle of the Bulge came after the invasion had started, they came in and they swept every person who didn't have an MOS number wound up on Normandy Beach, and I missed it by 3 days. But at any rate, those fellows that did go, they really, some of my friends said the best thing they ever did. They marched from Normandy to Berlin, and that took, I don't know, it was a tough battle getting there, so it was a good one to miss, although I wanted to go overseas, but I would rather have gone to Ireland or England if I had my choice. And
so from training, did you go directly into the war, or did you go home and then to the war?
Oh, I think we got a furlough for a week or so.
Okay.
But about that time, you're bored with being at home. All your friends are gone, you know.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't the same comradeship you had when you're in service. So when I had to go back after my furlough was all right with me. And then I would volunteer every month to go to the base I was at was kind of a casual force. We weren't really in any squadron or anything. We were in a training base for air pilots. but they would take people to replace those that either got lost in Europe or whatever, and send over half a dozen every month, you know. And I volunteer every month to go, and they didn't take me. And so I finally complained to the right person, my crew chief, and I asked him, when do I get out of here? They don't seem to want to take you. He said, Murr, you're too gun-ho. Do you think that colonel up there that runs this base is going to give up his good people? No, you'll be here forever. Slow down. so that didn't work. But anyhow, I then got shipped to another. I fought the Battle of the Islands. You've heard of that one probably. Well, I was at Rhode Island, and then I was at Long Island, and then I was the Isthmus of Panama. So, the last base that was a GI base that I didn't like in Panama, so I was working again on airplanes and had a friend by the name of Jim Bryan. And he got a notice over the PA to be ready at 8 o'clock on the flight line. A certain plane will be there, and we're flying you to South America. Well, he was a fellow that had 2 kids, you know. And he just broke down and started crying. And he said, heck, I'll never get home, you know. Well, I said, let me see what I can do about that. So I went in the office completely blind, and I looked up the lady that gave me the orders, and I said, I'm Jim Myers. It was Myers. She, well, he's a corporal. You're only a private. Oh, well, I should be a corporal. So she worked for the government, one of these city gal. And I said I should be a corporal. Well, the name is wrong. I said, well, a lot of people mispronounce it. It's Jim Murr or Jim Myers. He says, fella, if you want to go, you'll be on the on the tarmac in the morning. So that's where I was. Got on this plane, got down to South America, only to find out I didn't have any orders with me. I didn't exist. But they were short of help of my talent and said, but you aren't going back. So that was fine. Then I stayed there till I got discharged. I'm sorry.
Could you describe what the Last Man's Club is?
Well, it was a group of, I think, the local vets. You had to be a VFW member, and you signed up just to get together once a year and drink to the last man that died, see? So, it's down to the 3 of us now.
What part of the military were you in? You said you were in the Air Corps?
Air Force, right.
So that later became the Air Force. But what was your job as part of the Air Corps?
Well, I was a line mechanic, airplane mechanic before I went in, so I continued to do that in the service. And when I got down to South America, I got moved up to flight engineer, which meant I was assigned to a plane where it went, I would go with it, you know, to service the plane. So that was a nice job.
And then where did you serve? Was there one spot or location that you were primarily in?
I pretty much kept moving. I was in Ecuador and Peru and Chile and Isthmus of Panama. But they keep closing bases. I don't know if I did my job so good they closed them down or what it was. I was always leaving someplace.
And then how long did you serve? Like what length of time?
2 years and 1 day.
Is there any significance of that extra 1 day? Or was it just...
Well, they were talking about possibility we were going to have to fight the Russians next when this one was over. And I figured if I had over 2 years, they might not keep me. So it worked out fine. We didn't fight them, and significant was the war was over. It's time to go home.
Countries. Was there one country in particular that was your least favorite to go to, or had the worst experience there, or was there one of the better ones that was more welcoming to you, or?
Well, honestly, a lot had to do with the women, and I can't remember now. If I am, I'm not going to talk about it.
So you, throughout the war, you weren't injured at all either, or did there?
Was exposed to so much noise, sometimes 12 hours a day of airplanes in your ear, and we had no earplugs, and we weren't even conscious that we're going to lose our hearing. But there are millions of guys that got that from artillery or airplanes, or it's just been a curse that we didn't anticipate.
Do you have any other stories that were either memorable in a good way or memorable in a bad way that you'd like to share?
I didn't really have any. Well, one bad experience, it put me in charge of keeping the airplane flying at 3 o'clock in the morning over the Bermuda Triangle. And the pilot put on automatic pilot, and he said, "No, Murr, when this gauge gets down to low, switch to the other tank, it's full." And he went to sleep. Well, I looked at it, well, I think it'll last another 5 minutes. I think I'll just close my eyes for 5 minutes. We're running out of gas. His pilot was such an amazing guy. He woke up, pushed the wheel forward to keep up our flying speed. He reached down and made the switch himself, and then we had a wobble pump, a mechanical pump. If your engine pump went out, you could fly with this pump. 1, 2, 3, just like that. And we lost about 3,000 feet. But everybody we were hauling up, they were awake the rest of the night. I had company. And they put me on a 5-gallon can in the back of the airplane. Now you sit there, that'll keep you awake. They could have court-martialed me, but.
Did the war impact you positively or negatively? Like, what have you learned from coming out of the war or serving in the war?
Well, it was something to do. It was kind of exciting when you're looking for excitement. And I wouldn't take $1 million for my experience, but I wouldn't give you 2 cents to do it again.
What would you say to anyone that's interested in going into the military today? What would you give them, advice-wise?
My advice is, if you want to go in for a career, that's your choice. But I think there are better things and opportunities to do. But I do have a couple of friends that are really up high, but sons of a friend of mine. So there's an opportunity there if you're going to get an education and travel and experience. I would have hated to be in a war, number one, that we shouldn't have fought, which that was not this war, or one that we didn't bother to win, which is Vietnam. I just think it's an awful thing. Many soldiers are died, and we're still paying the price for that, millions of dollars every year for a war we never should have been in. So I think having a reason is a good reason for doing it, or to enhance your own education. It depends on what you're looking for. Everybody's different.